Good morning. Thank you all for having me here this morning. I am honored to be here. My name is Katie Green. I am a board-certified holistic health practitioner and neuromuscular therapist. I am the owner and operator of Green Living Holistic Health and Therapy, a health clinic here in Baton Rouge specializing in the treatment and prevention of pain utilizing an entirely holistic approach. I find that there exists a pattern in today's world, one of which has been occurring for quite some time, and one of which I still find somewhat difficult to decipher and put into words from a health or physiological standpoint. Everyone seems to be in pain, and they're emotionally distraught about that pain simply because they're unaware of how to address the pain. They've ridden the merry-go-round twice, 3 times, sometimes more, you'd be very surprised, and they end up at start yet again. They're tired, they're frustrated, they're confused, and most unfortunately, they're still in pain. I, once upon a time, was this person. I rode every medical merry-go-round imaginable. I was an athlete, a runner, with talent somewhat hindered by reoccurring injury and chronic pain. Everyone and every entity I sought or looked to for help was similar in their approach, yet the answers seemed very hard to come by. All the while I continued to suffer. I can remember at that time, I was like the end of middle school, beginning of high school when all of this sort of started. I can remember looking around me and noticing that I wasn't alone, that many others were experiencing parallel journeys and they all looked tired and very defeated. And I can remember sensing that there had to be something more, that something seemed to be missing from this mainstream approach to people in pain. I wasn't clear as to what that missing link was at the time, but you can assure yourself I was determined to find it. I was fortunate enough to cross paths with a holistic therapist my sophomore year at LSU, who, as cliche as it may sound, essentially changed my world and the way I viewed it. I morphed into a pain-free human being, a happier person, and an athlete I don't really think I knew I had in me. So as you can imagine, I immersed myself into the literature that I had available to me at the time on holistic health and holistic well-being. I learned, I studied, I read. I went on to graduate 2 years later to continue my studies and pursue a similar career myself and then some, in hopes to change at least one person's world the way that she changed mine. I became immediately and intensely passionate about people in pain and what that exactly meant, and the emotional trauma or state that it left them in, sort of like this redundant cycle of pain and frustration and confusion. Which brings us to today, what I am, what I do, what it all means, and how it differs from the other pain agendas out there. Holistic. I am well aware that the phrase holistic still has somewhat of a voodoo stigma attached to it. But I am here in Baton Rouge, in Louisiana, working very hard to hopefully pave the way and alter that stigma. Because holistic simply means whole. That's it, whole. Whole body, whole person, whole being, whole. The concept that lies behind holistic health is a whole, functioning approach to wellness. So, as holistic practitioners, we view the entity at task, the human body, as a living, eating, drinking, moving, breathing being of life. We don't live if we don't eat. We don't live if we don't drink. We don't live if we don't move. And we certainly don't live if we don't breathe. How we do all of these things, how we eat, how we drink, how we move, particularly how we breathe. It's more than just inhaling and exhaling. There's actually a very specific and delicate way to breathe that accommodates health and pain. So how we do all of these things are determinants for the amount at which we feel. As holistic practitioners, we do not regard the body in single segments, but rather a unit that functions as a whole based off of the numerous factors of the migrations of life. And if we don't investigate all of these factors, if we don't consider the individual and their uniqueness, if we don't consider their structure per case, per specific moment in time, per physiological makeup at that specific moment in time, then we don't solve the problem. And even more paramount, if we don't communicate with one another, if we don't establish at least a baseline patient-practitioner relationship, then we don't succeed. And this to me is not only the meaning behind the phrase holistic health, but it's also what sets me or us apart from what I referred to earlier as the mainstream approach to people in pain. So to delve into a little bit more detail about what all of that means, what the holistic approach to wellness really encompasses, here are a few very basic components that make up my practice on a daily basis. Number one, whole body approach, root cause versus symptom. So the first official appointment with me is a head to toe, postural, structural, spinal, musculoskeletal analysis, because my goal is to determine the root cause of what's plaguing you. The described pain is merely a symptom, or the body's communication pathway, if you will, alerting us that something isn't quite right. The body works in outstanding ways. Roughly 85 to 90% of the time, the pain is stemming from an issue, an imbalance, a discrepancy elsewhere in the body, and it's my job to determine what and where that is. For instance, a cervical misalignment can cause SI joint or low back pain and vice versa. A hypertonic suboccipital muscle at the base of the cranium can cause plantar foot issues and vice versa. The body likes to establish what I like to call a compensative chain reaction. So physiologically, we are always trying to maintain a state of homeostasis, or a state of complete and serene balance. And the body is going to compensatively do whatever it takes to remain in that state. It's going to do whatever it takes to continue to put one foot in front of the other. So because of this, it's very rare that one specific thing is causing the pain, particularly in chronic pain cases where the individual has been in pain for years or even decades, which I actually see a lot of. Everyone is out there searching for this one magical, concrete answer as to why they're in pain, but unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Rather, it's a multitude of biomechanic factors that take place within the body that eventually lead to pain, i.e. the symptom. One day you wake up and you have excruciating pain. Even in car accident cases, initial treatment options often fail to consider the chain reaction of, say, a whiplash injury. So it's not just the neck that suffers, and it's not just the neck that needs to be addressed in the treatment plan. So all of these pieces of the puzzle, these parts, go together to make up my practice on a daily basis. Communication. The art of communication is also a mindful component of my practice, and I encourage thorough use of it. The mechanics of the human body fascinate me, and it's important to me, I think a little bit on a personal level, of course, but mainly it's necessary for my treatment protocol that the patient understand them as well to the best of their ability via education on the material by myself. So it's important that they understand why, that they don't just do what they're told, but they understand why is this specific exercise or stretch or movement going to better me physically and move me further away from pain into a happier, more aligned state. Why do all of these things not only pertain to my pain case, but my structural makeup at that time? I also make sure to incorporate, strictly on a level of subjection, the emotional part of the pain. So I am not a psychiatrist. I am not a psychologist. But damn, it sure feels like I am sometimes. But I am certainly not diagnosing mental disorders. However, if I can simply listen and connect, if I can understand the individual, the history, their case on an intricate level, and furthermore, if I can communicate to that individual that our thought patterns, our thought processes play a key role in every sensory phase of our body, then we, patient practitioner, gain more progress at a faster rate. And I believe that's what we call efficiency. So what do I need in order to accomplish all of these things? What do I need in order to investigate all of the factors, in order to communicate thoroughly and establish that relationship? I need time. And time is obviously something very hard to come by in today's fast-paced world, which likely makes it the most challenging component of my practice. But I have found that if I do my best to sort of go against the grain of the fast pace and allow myself adequate time, that time and efficiency have a direct relationship with one another. There's a positive correlation there. So increase in time results in increase in efficiency, which leads to success. Success being or meaning a pain-free, happier individual. I see each patient for at least an hour, oftentimes more. So time in and out of the appointment, the communication outside of the appointment, the texting, the calling, the emailing, what have you, is also necessary for my treatment protocol, which obviously means that I see far less people a day than the traditional segue setting, and it can oftentimes set my schedule back by weeks. But it affords me the rate of success, and obviously that is the ultimate goal here. Another very crucial component to the holistic approach to wellness is physical plus nutritional, the blend of the two together. So, as holistic practitioners, we encourage the idea that an individual cannot fully heal without both the physical and the nutritional values. Health equals energy, input, and output at a cellular level, providing our cells with adequate energy via the appropriate consumption of food, food balancing, and food frequency is, quite frankly, the only way to achieve optimal and vital health. So in other words, we can physically rehab until we're blue in the face. But if we're not properly nourishing, if we're not replenishing energy on a daily basis via the appropriate consumption and absorption of vitamins and minerals through optimal digestible food choices, thus creating an anti-inflammatory environment, then the physical part is going to have much less success. That's just the way it goes. My treatment plan always includes how to accommodate pain through optimal food choices. And this, of course, stems from years and years of research on human physiology and how certain foods and food groups react with human beings as a species in comparison to the other living organisms on the planet, because we all have entirely different physiological makeups, which means that some foods are going to work well and accommodate us and not the other living organisms on the planet. Last and certainly not least component of my practice is that of aesthetics. The conventionality of a space plays a very important role in the way people feel, their emotions, and their comfort level. So when I was searching for a location for my business years ago, aesthetics were very important to me because I had been in the waiting rooms of the very large, cold, concrete, somewhat fearful and intimidating setting. And I, of course, wanted the opposite of that. If at all possible, I wanted to achieve a sort of personal, feels like home mantra from the moment that you walk into the door. And fortunately, I was able to transpire exactly that. So it sets the level of comfort and allows me to build a relationship based on trust from the get-go. Or at least that's the idea. So as you can see, there are far more than just mystic and magic and voodoo that go into the holistic approach to wellness. But please let me set the record straight that I am not here, nor have I ever been here to bash or judge or put down any profession or professional in any realm of work, for that matter. There's a time and a place for everyone and everything. I am simply here offering an alternate approach. If you are currently in a method trying to relieve your pain or achieve health and it's not working for you, I'm here to say, okay, let's take a different approach and look at things a little bit differently. But believe me, if my son falls and breaks his leg and his tibia is sticking through his shin, of course I'm going to hope that there's a medical doctor somewhere nearby. I don't think there's a holistic approach that's going to mend a broken bone. But the rehab portion, I'm all over that. So again, thank you all for having me today. It's been an honor to talk about what I'm passionate about, and I certainly appreciate the time. Are there any questions?